It's now time for our main event with your host, Chris Tetrold Blaine. Welcome to Once Upon a Turnbuckle.
Welcome back to this new episode of Once Upon a Turnbuckle, and it's a very, very special one. So I get to welcome my very first special guest, and someone who's used to being in the ring. So this is really, really exciting for me because finally, after a boyhood dream of possibly being in the ring myself, I get to talk to someone about what it's actually like. So welcome to the show, Tomas James Sky.
Thanks for having me on.
No worries. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a fun day. Another day back in the ring. Been up to House of Pain today in Nottingham, which has been amazing. There's a guy called Sticks who runs the joint, and
Cool.
he's freaking amazing.
Cool.
I've also hit the gym again, so it's a busy old day at the moment.
We'll get straight into that bit because I guess it's a lot of the bigger promotions, they found a way of carrying on through all this. What have you guys been doing, sort of more on the independent scene? How's it affected you?
Wow. So realistically, we didn't have a lot we could do near the start. When lockdown was officially in effect, all we could do was train, whether it be in the gym, whether it be just at home. Oh, well, no, it wasn't even the gym. It was using the home gym, let me say.
Okay.
So using the home gym or doing workouts in the living room, maybe do a bit of watching, I don't know, really like WWE and AEW, maybe a bit of TNA. So really just watching stuff on TV was the main thing that we were doing. As I think it was the end of July tended to come close, or I think that might be the end of June. They were able to set restrictions so that we could, as professional athletes, get back in the ring and train with contact. It's one of the few things that we've been allowed to do, so that's been incredible. So there's a few places dotted here, there and everywhere, and it's just allowed us to shake a bit of rust and practice our craft a bit more.
So
that and the gyms are open as well now, which is amazingly helpful.
See, that's one place actually. It not filled me with dread, but I'm not a gym bunny by any stretch of the imagination, but I really should be. So when they were opening my local gym, I was like, oh God, now I've got no excuse not to go. Sort of thing.
The
But
pressure's
guys,
on to get back there now. That's it.
Yeah, for you guys, I think it's probably you've been chomping at the bit. I would imagine to really sort of doing.
Well,
have you taken a bit of it as a bit of a rest to kind of rest any injuries and whatever, or has it really just been?
I'd say at the beginning of lockdown, it was like everyone was finding their feet with how they stood with workouts. For example, me and my other half, we moved into our first home, so we were gutting the house for 2 weeks solid. So I didn't do any gym work. I'll openly admit it.
Probably didn't need it.
And
stuff like that.
Sorry?
They probably didn't need it with stuff like that, to be fair.
No, not at all. Well, yeah, putting new carpets down, painting the whole house. Honestly, it was a whole new scale. The house was a mess. But now we're in here, and the first thing we did was turn the conservatory into a gym.
Cool.
We were doing workouts in the living room within 2 weeks.
Wow.
We didn't even have a TV in there. It was just literally put our phone like up on the side. Set a workout on the roll and just blow each other up and
Awesome.
then collapse.
So let's go. Firstly, introduce you a bit more. So just tell us a little bit about your in-ring experience. Sort of bring us up to speed. What's your persona? Sort of who are you when you're in the ring?
Okay, so my character is TJ Sky, or Tomas James Sky. I've been wrestling for, I think in October it'll be 11 years. I started in October 2000. No, is it 11? Yes, I started in October 2010. That was my first official debut from Coventry, England, but I am now residing from Burbage, Hinckley, Leicestershire. Wrestling's a real roller coaster. I never really was into it as a kid, so like people that are surrounding me are like, oh, I've been watching it since I'm like 3, 4, and I'm like, I didn't find wrestling until probably the age of 11.
Wow. Okay.
Would it be 11? No, no, it wouldn't have even been 11. How old would I have been? No, probably no, maybe 9, I think. Yeah, it was TNA in 2009 that made wrestling for me.
Okay.
That was my first wrestling love, let's say. So I used to do backyard wrestle with my friends because there were no schools that I was aware of. My folks didn't know of any schools.
No.
And I found a place over in Coventry called Phoenix Wrestling, run by a really great guy called Psycho Steve, who's really old school, and he's so good, so talented, especially when it comes to his technical work. Like,
Right.
he was unreal. Probably not the best all-round wrestler,
Yeah.
but as a technical wrestler, absolutely. He would run circles around anybody
Wow.
in that class, and he's one of the old Hammerlock guys. So it
I
was a
was going to
real.
mention that, yeah, because I mean, this will show the age gap probably. So I got into wrestling when I was about 7. It was like 91.
Oh wow,
I,
that's a
I,
lot for me.
I actually, I kind of came away and I stopped watching it regularly in about 2000, 2001. But around about that time, I went to uni in 2002 and I did discover the Hammerlock. It used to be on one of the TV channels, terrestrial TV channels, I think. And there was, I think, because I was at uni in Stoke-on-Trent, and I think there was a wrestling school attached to NWA Hammerlock in Wigan, possibly up that way anyway. And I was kind of toying
Yeah,
with the idea of trying to get into it then. Just couldn't find logistically a way to do it. So, I mean, are there any in particular the British stars, sort of not necessarily attached to Hammerlock and that, but were there any particular ones that you've been around or that you've watched from over here that particularly sort of inspired you at that time?
so British workers that inspire me. Oh wow. See, there's lots to take away depending on your look and wrestling. For myself, it's always going to be something I enjoy, and if I don't enjoy it, that'll be the day I step
Mhm.
away.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all about. For me, it's more about less about an individual. It's more about the actual aspect of how people see wrestling.
Yeah.
Guys that are on shows with me at the minute, Joey Scott is by hand. It is just unreal. He's one of the best workers, best talents in this country, completely overlooked, and he's really under the radar. And I'm really proud to say he's one of my good friends in wrestling. Oh God, let me think who else is. There's guys like Steve Valentino. I'd say he's a real cool guy. Amazing character. These are all guys that I'll use in my own shows and I see on other shows as well. And I just have no idea how they're slipping under the radar and just aren't in more places. In regards to more of the old school guys, I would probably say, oh wow, I'm really not an old school person. I don't really know a lot of people from really far back. Um, oh wow, this is really difficult.
So,
See the guys that really stand out for the older guys, and I would say they kind of created a path and led the way for the new style of wrestling. I'd say the two guys that are really quite inspirational, probably not just to myself, but to people all over the country, are probably Johnny Storm and Jody Fleisch. But they were again surrounded by people with surrounded by people like Styx, who had the pleasure of being around today. He was kind of with those guys, building up the levels. Guys like Nathan Cruz were quite inspirational early on to me. We got a chance to meet him when I was quite green in the business. So, I mean, he was a pleasure to be around. He was such a professional. He literally is like, it's his gimmick, and he legit is the professional. He's
cool.
so good at what he does, and he's so cool backstage. Um,
I think there's a real
oh,
resurgence for sort of British. I mean, the American indies. I think I've done, I've done a massive part for, particularly maybe the promotions over here, because there's not like a big promotion in England, in Britain.
no,
Recognise.
there's always times where companies pop up and they have a bit of a bit of an ignition switch, and then it always seems to flicker out. And WCPW, What Culture, they did an excellent job of that. I mean, they were getting to be one of the most, popular shows in the country. I was so buzzed to see them doing so well. When World of Sport's been over and NXT have been over, again, they've been doing the same. I'm really good that World of Sport didn't continue. I think it was really, really fun. I think that ITV obviously had a way they wanted to do it, whilst most BritRest people were more concerned of the way they wanted to. It was just a conflict of business, I think. But I'm all up for any company coming into this country and taking it by storm. As long as this country is showing good wrestling, that's all I care about.
That's it. And it'd be great when we go back to a time that we can have that. I mean, is there any glimmer of, anything on the horizon where you guys know you'll be able to hold your live events again, or is that still sort of?
At the minute, we've really got no idea. We're able to do uncrowded shows. So I'll turn my phone down. We're able to do non-crowded shows, which is great because it gives us a platform to be on, a platform to showcase what we do. It also gives people that enjoy wrestling something to watch. But at the moment, live shows in the UK anyway are probably just a no-go. I'd probably say the early next year might be a good shout to restart shows. But at the moment, I'm me myself with my company, I will only start that back up once the government's said it's good, and once we know we have got every implication in place to make sure that everybody, not just our wrestlers, not just the people that are coming to watch, but down to the cameramen, down to the announcers, down to the first aiders we've got on site as well. But just to keep everybody safe. It's a manic time, and at the moment, I'm glad people are being really safe and really careful.
I think have you done any of these uncrowded shows yet, or are they?
Not yet.
How do you think that's going to differ if you do sort of, to the usual, do you draw a lot from the buzz of the crowd? Do you think that,
Yeah. So for me, a lot of what I do, a lot of the time I'd say I'm probably the good guy in wrestling shows, let's say. And I've usually got the crowd on my side. It feels weird because you can bounce back with people. In a sense, it's like a pantomime. Like, not it was wrestling, but in relation to how if an audience gives you some jip, you can easily throw it right back at them and bounce off each other. You can kind of do it with your opponent, and by all means, it has to be done at this point. But I for one miss the crowds massively.
I thought that with football matches. I'm not a massive football fan like I used to be, but probably watching a game, even watching it from home, won't be the same. If you've not got the crowd there, it kind of really adds that element to it. So,
I've got to admit, I'm dreading the NFL this year. I love my American football, and it starts in the middle of September because there's no preseason, and even I'm just like, how's it going to be without a crowd? But I'm still going to watch. I'm still going to watch my team and support them through it because at the end of the day, I want people to support the wrestling while it's a little bit down on its knees. So touch wood. I know this will be going out Friday, isn't it? So if it's going out on Friday, and to anybody listening, I definitely say while we're on the subject of shows being around, keep your eyes out on what was Turnbuckle TV, because Full Force Wrestling are going to be filming a show very soon, and they've got what looks to be a terrific card put together. They've got some real good safety implications put in place to keep all of the staff and all of the wrestlers as safe as possible, and it's going to keep everybody entertained, and they're going to put some mint wrestling on. I'm excited for it. We've been talking about it today with the promoter, and he's excited for it. The workers are excited for it. It's going to be our first proper taste back of an actual show. So if you're listening, please keep your eye on Turnbuckle TV and keep your eye on Full Force Wrestling.
I'll check that out as well. Thanks for that. I must say I'm disillusioned with the won't delve too much into it, but the sort of current product is so far from what I grew up with.
Yeah.
I don't feel that connection with it, so I'm always looking for something with like I don't know, like the raw nature that you used to get, say in 80s, 90s. Again, the independent scene. It was about what was happening in the ring. Not necessarily the storylines that were happening behind the scenes, but the important thing was what was going on in the ring. And I'm kind of missing. I've gravitated towards sort of NWA Power recently because it's the closest thing I saw to what I grew up watching. But I am missing sort of non-theatrical kind of whatever the WWE are doing at the minute. It's straying a little bit, for me anyway, straying a little bit too far from what it was or what it should be.
Yeah, it's different eras. Everybody has a different like, everybody has a certain dislike. When I used to watch wrestling to start with, I was always really into the likes of like AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and this is like from 2009. So I used to love the insane acrobatics and this real hard hitting match. And now I'm finding myself enjoying. I enjoyed all sorts of wrestling. So I enjoy my technical wrestling. I do really enjoy some of the older stuff that I get a chance to sometimes watch. I'll even watch some of the really old World of Sport stuff with like Les Keller, Mick McManus. He's one of my favourites from back then. So I think as long as you're enjoying what you're watching, that's the main thing in wrestling. And everybody's if you don't like it, simply don't watch it.
There's a product out there. I think there's so much choice now. When I was growing up, I mean, it was all pretty much the same, but it was WWF or the NWA, WCW. You didn't really have a lot more to play with, especially over in the UK. You didn't see a lot of anything else that was going on. But I think with social media, particularly what YouTube are doing and all these channels, Fight TV and all that, you can see all the different promotions now, and it's really exciting. So you can be into one in particular, and you can hunt it out and keep up with it.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Wrestling's one of those things that it's really exploded, and the internet has really given us a real great platform where we can literally click a button and watch as much wrestling as our hearts contain. You mean you've got things like the WWE Network, which are insane to think you can be watching the likes of Progress Wrestling. You could be watching WXW. You could be watching ICW from up in Scotland. You could be watching the generic WWE. You could be watching WWE NXT UK. So platforms like that are excellent. Again, I'll take you straight back to Turnbuckle TV. They provide a platform where you can watch so much good British wrestling, and there are so many good companies on there and so many good matches. I think it's mint that people have just got that at the tip of their fingers, and I think it's taken for granted a lot. I even find myself jolting onto YouTube every now and again because I'll fancy a little bit of Young Bucks when they were Generation Me, or a little bit of Motor City Machine Guns, and it's about what you're in the mood for, and sometimes what's in front of you live on a show you're not in the mood for.
No.
But then you'll have another match, and you'll think, I don't know, I fancy a bit of hardcore, and then your next match announces a death match, and you think, oh god, here we go, this is what I want. That's not for me. Like, death matches are not my cup of tea.
So if a promoter came to you, and said, this is what we're planning to do, have you got your limits as to what sort of match you'll do in the ring, or are you pretty much...
Yeah, for me, unfortunately, death matches aren't my favourite, so I wouldn't be one to dive in there. If somebody said to me, tables, ladders, chairs, steel cage, I'd be well up for it. I'd be over the moon to dive in that ring at a heartbeat. The only things that tend to really cringe me, and I just couldn't do them. I think it's why I definitely couldn't even attempt it. I couldn't do tacks, thumbtacks, and I probably couldn't do glass or light tubes. I think it's just one stage that fair play to these guys. They've got some massive balls to be able to do it, but I couldn't do it. No way.
I used to look at the pictures back in the magazines in my day of when this stuff started to come to the fore, really, when some of these magazines were covering stuff like that, and they'd be chewing on a light tube or something, and I was like, what the hell?
Don't get me wrong, it's a craft. There is people say, oh, it's just recklessness. It's not. Absolutely not. it's very well done, and it takes it's strategic, and it's built well, and most of the guys that can do it well can do it really, really well with like a good story in there, and they can really tug on your heartstrings through the simplest of things. But for me, I'll stick to headlocks and maybe the odd table bump.
There you go, ideal. So it's taking you back to the beginning sort of thing again. So you mentioned you discovered wrestling obviously when you were a kid, and the kind of thing that you that got you into it. Was there one moment or one match or one wrestler that made you think this is definitely what I want to do?
So my first bit of wrestling I ever witnessed was on an old VCR. Yeah, is that right? VHS tape. Neighbour had recorded something for me, and then he taped over some wrestling. So as it fizzled out to what it had been recorded over, it was wrestling. So my first match was Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock from WWF in like 2002, maybe. I guess I don't really know, to be honest.
They ran it for a few years, yeah, depending on which one it was. But
it was amazing. But they weren't the guys. They were the guys that probably made me go, "Oh wow, what's this?" And that made me curious of the sport. They weren't the people that really captivated me and made me want to do it myself. The people that probably made me want to do it myself, I'd probably refer back to Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles. I would even say Rhino. I was a massive fan of Rhino when I first started. I have no idea why, but I loved what he did. He was really aggressive. He was a complete badass. And then as I got more and more into wrestling, probably within about a year or two, the Motor City Machine Guns were brought in, and I was just in awe of how quick and how well they worked together in the matches they put in. And then them going up against Team 3D and Team 3D. You've got Generation Me. You've got Beer Money. Beer Money. I love Beer Money. And you just throw them all together, and it really does just top off a whole wrestling experience that just made me think, yeah, this is for me. Come 2010, just threw myself at this training school the first chance I had.
I was going to say, so that's really, so you made the decision to do it, and then you found this school. Was it just a case, did you have to mull it over, or was it a case that, no, I'm going, and that was it, no turning back sort of thing?
It was a case, it was definitely, I was nervous as hell. Yeah, I turned up in, this is embarrassing, I turned up in what I had, in like these baggy shorts and a vest top and some really terrible trainers that I was certain would be my career gimmick attire, and it was dreadful. I was ready to go at a heartbeat, expecting to walk in and be ready to step straight in those robes, in between those robes, and I was in over my head from the moment I walked in that building. And it was only when I took my first bump that it was just on mats, that we had no ring to start off with. The ring would be a treat once a month. Right. Which was good. I mean, I got in a ring and I was like, oh, it'll be all foam, and oh man, it sucked.
I've heard it's like concrete. Some of them.
And it was mad. I emphasise, I was so in over my head. Those first bumps sucked, but I loved it. And every week I would go back and I would pay my bus fare, take that hour's journey to training, do my training, take my hour's bus journey home. It was mint. I spent every last bit of pocket money I had just training. I had nothing else in my life I was interested in. And of course, I got home, I had that trampoline, I copied absolutely everything I could, and I would be practicing with myself.
Why not?
Or with a friend from school. Yeah.
How old were you when you first started training?
So, I would have been I think I joined when I was 15. I'm certain I was, because my debut was October. And I had been training for about half a year beforehand. Most people tend to take, half a year if they. if they're quite naturally good, I would say most people take at least half a year to get themselves a good solid base to step in a ring and do their debut. I'd been backyarding for a while, so in a sense, I was a bit practiced to how a few moves worked, and I think it definitely contributed into how fast I was ready. I would go back in a heartbeat and tell myself a million reasons why I wasn't ready now, but yeah, there's always a point. I do see some schools that rush their students through, and if they're ready, fine. By all means, put them in there and let them enjoy being a wrestler as much as I do. But there's a certain point where you have to cap it off, let's say. Just you have to make sure that they're able to protect themselves, but more importantly, protect their opponent.
Yeah. I suppose you've got to have them in there with someone more experienced that can look after them.
Yeah, I would agree. There's no point chucking two new guys in the ring together, because you're only gonna it's
a bad combination, I suppose.
Yeah. Especially for your first match. I mean, my first match was a 6-man scramble with what I can only be described as a bunch of very green individuals running a segment of moves in a specific order that made no sense whatsoever. And the crowd, they didn't care. I cared. I cared so much, but it was. But no, the actual match itself was dreadful, but it's a learning curve.
I've read some stories and that of guys when they're talking about, you know, people going to wrestling, when they went into it, they tend to start off with things like battle royals and that, where they can get a taste of it. They only have to be in there for probably a couple of minutes or whatever. You know.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah. It means the whole crowd's eyes aren't on you as a specific person. There's other people in there, so you can practice your craft in front of a crowd without the pressure of it just being you in there. So if you make those little mistakes that we all do make, you're less likely to get it noticed. You have your moment to shine where you come in, and you get to that big reaction where you come out. You have that moment where you get eliminated, or maybe you don't get eliminated. Maybe you're very, very lucky and you win the Rumble, but but you'll have a moment in there.
Yeah. So if we were to say in, I don't know, 5 years' time, it's like being in a job interview. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? What would you like to achieve, or where would you like to be in another 5 years, you know, in the wrestling world?
Okay, so for me personally, we had this discussion again today with the Full Force promoter and a few friends. Wrestling for me is not about making it to the WWE or to one of these larger scale companies. For me, it's a hobby / job, and I just want to be in a position where I'm enjoying British wrestling and able to do it in a safe, fun environment. That is all I care about. So, as much as people are clawing at the bit to get to these bigger companies, it's not my main drive. If my wrestling company can be doing really well by 5 years' time and still entertaining people, I'm able to help other individuals push themselves so that they're show ready. I'd be happy with that. More than happy.
Cool. So what with the current company that you're with at the minute that you're referring to, do you what is your role in terms of, obviously, as well as being an in-ring persona? Are you involved in sort of other things with them?
Yeah, so at the minute, I'm a professional wrestler all over the country, as I am. But on the side, when I first got with my other half, we were just exploring the idea of wrestling in the area of Hinckley, which we've moved to, which is South Leicestershire. And really, there was nothing in the area. And we just said on the off chance, let's run a pro wrestling show. You know, I've got friends in places that could assist, and I've got all the right contacts to get the show mashed together. And yeah, we put a one-off show on at the local football stadium, and it was good fun. And then from there, they asked us to do another one, and we did another. and then another, and another, and another. And now we run a pro wrestling show across South Leicestershire and North Warwickshire. It's called Wrestling in Hinckley because we're really original with our wrestling names. And
Hey,
yeah,
the simple ones get
it's
remembered. So
it's honestly it's the most uninventive name you can think of. But I tell you what, we've got a really good reputation. We've got some astounding workers. The environment I pride myself on is that people should enjoy wrestling, and it needs to be safe and fun, and that is all we're providing. There's not a lot of politics involved with us, which there are with a lot of other companies, but yeah, we provide a really amazing platform for so many really talented people that, again, are sneaking under the radar. Again, I'll throw Steve Valentino and Joey Scott in there. Both of those are way under the radar. I've got friends that are on there as well. So these are, you get a lot of places that will just hire their friends because they're friends, and it sucks, but it does happen. I'm guilty of putting my friends in a position that maybe they weren't ready for, but a lot of my friends are very good, and I've got a lot of faith in their work. So I would, so the guys I would chuck on a show in a heartbeat. I'd chuck Jason Joshua in there. He's a local lad. He's very, very talented. He's come up through the ranks, and he's been wrestling about 3 years now under my coaching, which I do at New Breed Wrestling Association in Oxford. So I travel there every week as well. So, but to mention that company as well, you've got NJ Lockhart, you've got Alex Chambers, 2 more of my students, amazing guys, really cool talents. So I've been able to watch all 3 of those guys develop. Not just through my company, but also through helping New Breed Wrestling Association. So it's been amazing to see those guys progress. I've got one of my best friends, Kieran Young. Me and him bicker like husband and wife, but I tell you what, he's a really cool guy, really cool worker. He was my first tag team partner, and he started off at Phoenix Wrestling Association with me.
Cool.
And he's amazing. So I'd always put him in there. Who else have we got? Oh, there's just so many people. I wouldn't even like to start narrowing it. The judge sounds like such a cheesy character, and I tell you what, he is far from a cheesy character. My gosh, the guy can work. So honestly, I could list off guys all day long that have worked for me.
This is amazing. So you fulfilled one dream. You're performing in the ring, and then you're promoting, you're training. I think you're probably ticking all the boxes of a wrestling fan, really. That not only wants to be in the ring, but want to do all the other things. Because I think as I've got older, when it became apparent I was never going to do anything physically, being probably a booker, sort of, I quite like being an author as well. That the whole writing thing, the creative side of it, really appealed to me. So there's so many more elements to the wrestling world other than being in the ring. And
absolutely,
I think a lot of people miss that.
Absolutely. I mean,
behind the scenes.
I'll be honest with you, I don't really properly book our shows. I've got a really good friend who helps me, and the company would not be the same without him. His name is Christopher Drew. He's one of my top villains in my show, and he's also our champion at the moment, which everybody seems to hate. And I tell you what,
I watched the match with you and him on YouTube.
That's awesome. Which one was that? We have a match every year.
I can't remember exactly which one it was now, to be fair.
What colour gear was he wearing? Was it red trunks?
I think so. I'm just going to try.
If it's his red trunks, that was the.
Yes.
I think that's our third. I think that was like our third match.
Okay.
And yeah, this is kind of like before I'd officially asked him to step on the booking side. Okay. The company was growing and growing and growing, and I needed somebody to take the pressure of booking the shows away from me, and somebody that really had an eye for wrestling knowledge. And Chris Drew has got an eye and a half for wrestling knowledge. You can literally list a match from any show at any point in any company, and he will tell you who was in it and what they were doing and the stories and what the weather was like that day and how humid it was as well. And he's incredible. He helps so much. I can't emphasize how grateful I am to have Chris Drew as part of my team.
Cool.
But yeah, going back to that match was probably either our second or third match, and it was a Christmas show. I'm sure it was. And that was at the Green King Stadium in Hinckley. It was about our second year in, and I remember putting us, because I've always been the sort that I won't go in the main event at my own show. I've got other guys that much more deserve it than I do.
Yeah.
So I was always like, no, I will go on before them. And I remember the judge turning to me, because he was in the main, he says, okay, sure, make sure you leave us some stuff, because we know what you two are like when you're together. Please leave us some stuff for the main event. And I remember going out, and I must have laughed to myself, because I knew we'd planned so much. I knew we had planned to just do everything, and it was it was ridiculous. 450s, there was springboards, there was bloody top rope Frankensteiners, there's a powerbomb on the apron, there was a bit on the outside.
It was an awesome match. You know, I haven't sampled enough, I don't think, of the British indie stuff, but I mean, I thought it was epic. It was brilliant.
By all means, if you ever want any wrestling stuff, message Wrestling in Hinckley, or message us, or I tell you what, please just get yourself on Turnbuckle TV. We're on there for Wrestling in Hinckley. Full Force Wrestling is on there as well. There's other great companies that I'm working for a lot as well that are on there as well. There's lots of stuff on YouTube. Just search YouTube. There's lots of really good free wrestling you can watch, or you can even pay to see some stuff if you really want the really cool stuff. Honestly, there's so much wrestling you can't just
I'm definitely going to be checking that out. Hopefully, any of the listeners listening to this as well inspired. You know, check out this stuff. You know, the couple of matches I managed to see, this one in particular, it just shows the caliber that's out there. You know, undetected, a lot of it. Just because you're not on TV doesn't mean that you can't wrestle some of these professional guys out there sometimes. So
absolutely.
So just a very quick session before we sort of wrap it up. Just a very quick sort of fantasy booking sort of thing. If there was one wrestler from any period that you could step in the ring with, who would it be? What sort of match would it be?
Can I give a few answers?
You can, sure.
Cool. So one guy I've always really wanted to wrestle because I love his work is Loki.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Very hard hitting, very aggressive, and I think it'd be a match that I'd be pushed to a whole new level on. And I think it'd be a real eye opener for me in a different style of wrestling that I'm probably not used to.
Mm-hmm.
I love his work, and I would just love to go against him in a very basic singles match.
Cool.
Tag team wrestling.
Yep.
Just throw any team that I said earlier at me. Throw Beer Money at me. Throw the Motor City Machine Guns at me. Throw Generation Me at me. Throw the Young Bucks. Yeah. I love Team 3D. Throw them at me. But I would say, yeah, any of those tag teams. There's probably more if I sat and had a good thing that I'd want thrown at me. But I absolutely love tag team wrestling. I can't emphasize how much I love it. So yeah, I think any tag team in any match would suit me.
That's a great answer, because I think the art of tag team wrestling is slowly coming back, but for so many years it's been really the big promotions have really mucked around with it, and
there's some incredible stuff.
Going back, you know, to the 80s when I sort of started watching it, the Steiners, the Freebirds, the Road Warriors, obviously they were there, they were the big powerful ones. I was more for the real stuff, the sort of technical stuff. So the Steiner brothers were probably my favourite ones to watch.
It's
tag
team wrestling is a real art, and it's having that chemistry with not only the person you're tagging with, but the opponents you're with. Yeah. It's a real art form, and I tell you what, it's so difficult. It really is, but it's amazing when it's done right. It's tremendous. I would probably say, if I was to go for something a bit weird and wonderful, I'd probably say stick me in a cage match with Bubba Ray Dudley.
Oh, okay.
Somebody that has got charisma oozing out of every orifice. And personally never seen him have one bad match.
No, I'll agree with
I
that,
love his
actually.
work, and it's completely unlike my own. I like to think I'm a bit less charismatic and a little bit quick-footed, a bit more technical and a bit more high-flying. He's the polar opposite of me. He's
Yeah.
charismatic and he's so hard-hitting and safe at the same time. But I'd love to just sit for a day and pick his brains
I
and
bet yeah.
just let him talk.
Yeah.
I'd listen to every single word. I think he's a
He's one
real
that
credit.
when I first saw the Dudleys come out, he was, I mean, he's the oddball, or he was the oddball one when I first started watching him. And then he really, when I didn't keep up with TNA when he was in there, but he really made a name for himself there.
I think he
He
did
was
wonders
on.
in TNA. They've done excellently. His
Mm,
stuff with Cheeseburger in Ring of Honor was I was speechless for half of the stuff.
yeah.
But he's got such a good brain, and this is why again I find that you need somebody with a little bit of knowledge. And this is again why I emphasise I love having Chris Drew as part of my team at Wrestling
Mm,
in Hinckley, because he's got that insight. Very probably not has probably doesn't got the actual in ring experience that Bubba Ray has,
mm,
but by all means he's got the ideas there
yeah.
that Bubba Ray does, and it's that is again why I love having Chris Drew as part of my team. I'd be lost without him.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'll open the floor to you for a couple of minutes. So, how can people keep up with you? Social media, how can they follow you and keep up with what you're doing?
Okay, awesome. So, if you want to follow me, I've got Twitter, I've got Instagram, and I've got Facebook. Search me up. It's Tomas James Sky. So that's Tomas James Sky. If you want to follow Wrestling in Hinckley, please give them a follow. They're on Instagram as Wrestling in Hinckley 15. They're on Facebook as Wrestling in Hinckley, and they're on Twitter as Wrestle Hinckley. I'd probably say get yourselves over to Turnbuckle TV as well. It's one little platform that is so small in the British circuit. I'm going to quickly just have a look and actually see what they're under. They've rebranded themselves, and I'm a bit annoyed with myself that I haven't memorised what the new name is.
That's all right.
Turnbuckle TV. That's it. Powered for TV. I think it is now. I'm sure it is. Yes, it's Powered. So you want to be searching Powered, the number 4 TV. They're the new guys taking over from Turnbuckle TV. And I tell you what, the stuff they've got planned, it sounds so exciting. So please get yourself over to Powered for TV. It looks crazy. They've got so much wrestling content. You'll never want to unsubscribe ever. It's the best thing. And it's so cheap. I think it's like £4, £3.99. I think.
Wow.
A month, which is like
Nothing really.
like a
No.
third of the price of the network, and even
Yeah.
the network's cheap as chips.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's
but yeah,
brilliant.
please get onto my social media, get onto Tomas James Sky, get onto Wrestling in Hinckley, and I say get onto Powered for TV. You won't regret it. You won't regret anything.
And there you
Plus, go
go.
onto YouTube. Loads of free stuff there.
There you go. No excuses, peeps. Get on there. But thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, mate.
No, not a problem, Chris.
Wish you
Anytime.
all the best with everything that you're doing. Can't wait to see you back in the ring so that you can show everyone what you got.
Brilliant.
Really.
I'll fire some matches over as soon as Full Force have run this show. I'll fire a match over your way.
Do it. Thank you, mate. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Once Upon a Turnbuckle to keep updated about all future shows.